Alrighty, so hello to everybody. I know that people are going to be hopping on as we are moving along here, but welcome to the final ASCA Live for the month of July. I can't believe we are already here at the end. But we have three special guests joining us today, and I am also going to be moderating this panel. So bear with me as I've never done this before, but I'm excited to hear from our three guests. I'm not going to introduce them because that's kind of our first question here. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through 5 or 6 different questions, and then towards the end, we are going to open it up to all of you. If you have questions that pop up in the meantime, go ahead and just throw them in the chat, and then I will hit those once we get towards the end of the presentation. But to get us started, so I wanted everybody to go ahead and to introduce themselves and then talk about what initially attracted you to coach at your current division or institution. And then if you could, describe your institution and discuss what you think some of the best opportunities that your division has to offer. So a little bit of a longer one, but we're going to go ahead and we're going to start with Eric and then move our way through to Meg and to Olga. So Eric, let's hear it.
Hi, my name is Eric Skelly. I'm the head swimming and diving coach at the University of the Cumberlands in Williamsburg, Kentucky. We're an NAIA institution located in the Mid-South region of the country. I came here as the head coach in the summer of 2011, so this is the start of my 15th season with the Patriots. And what really drew me to the NAIA, I was very fortunate growing up. I was exposed to it a lot in where I grew up in Ohio with all the schools that were available, and a lot of the Division two schools and some Division one that are current were NAIA programs way back in the ancient days when I was swimming in the 90s. I really love the feel of the small college environment, as most of our institutions are small private schools. I also like the feeling of being able to work and recruit with athletes and not feel like a cog in the machine. I had come from a Division one program, and yeah, I felt definitely part of that. So I think the NEI had a lot of opportunities as well, and I saw growth. I saw us adding schools and new programs, and over the course of the last 11 years, we actually have been the fastest growing of all the divisions in terms of adding swimming as a sport, and we're adding 5 new schools this upcoming year. So it's very exciting. So yeah, that's just our program in a nutshell, and why I chose the NAIA and why I've chosen to stay.
Awesome. Meg, let's go ahead and move on to you.
Great, thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Meg French. I'm the head coach of both men's and women's programs here at MIT. We're located in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and we're a Division III institution. So I'm going on my 7th year here at MIT, and it's been amazing so far. And before MIT, I coached at Pomona-Pitzer Colleges in Southern California, also a Division III school. And before that, I coached at my alma mater, Springfield College, which is a small school in Western Massachusetts, another Division III institution. So Division III is what I know. It's where I grew up. It's what I love. And so my whole career as a student athlete and coach has been centered around the student athlete experience. I believe in the mission, the lifestyle, the experience, and I think there's something for everybody in Division III. I think it's safe to say that in Division III, in any division, in any section of collegiate swimming and diving, there's very few differences between September to March, right? We're all getting after it, and we have our dual meets and our championship seasons. And then in the off season, it's a little bit different, and we can get into that in just a little bit. But I think the Division III philosophy very much centers around the holistic student athlete experience, having the best of all worlds while they're in college. So I'm happy to share anything and everything about the experiences that I've had from both a swimming perspective and a coaching perspective in Division III.
Awesome. And Olga.
Hi everyone, my name is OlgaYasianovich, and originally I'm from Belarus. So I moved to the US 3 years ago, and last year I worked with Barry University in Miami, Division two institution, and it was my first college experience, and I really enjoyed it. And as Megan said, a Division three institution, they like holistic approach, and so that what I really love about Division two, they kind of in the same way, they really approach the like balance between education and sport life. So yeah, thank you for inviting.
All right, awesome. So we're going to kind of move through these questions and we lined them up so that way it makes the most sense as we're moving through. So we're going to go ahead and move on here to recruitings and relationships. So to our panel here, what are your recommendations for your swimmers during the recruiting process? What do you think the best and the worst things are that they could possibly do? And what is your number one piece of advice? And Eric, you're muted.
Yep, there we go. Sorry. Technology's a hard thing for me. Um, I think for me, the recommendations that I would give for swimmers in the recruiting process is on top of keeping an open mind, but making sure that you're doing your due diligence when you're investigating all avenues in the recruiting process. I think it's important that everybody um, looks at not just how great the team is, what the culture's like, how many yards they do in a practice, but making sure that academically the needs are being met of the student athlete. I think without that, we're oftentimes seeing individuals choose an institution because of the brand name or the swimsuits that they wear, as opposed to what is the degree that they're going to have for them, and what is the advancement beyond that into adulthood. Whether or not it's going on to medical school or if you're interested in engineering, things along those lines. I think it's very important that you're doing the research necessary and asking the hard questions, because we as coaches get the easy ones all the time. How many yards do you do? What's your culture like? Those are pre-programmed in our brains. I think it's important that the swimmers ask the very hard questions, and club coaches do it as well. Asking institutions, what can you do for my athlete? What is the advantage of them swimming for your program as opposed to another institution? Um, I think the worst thing you can do is start right off the bat and ask how much scholarship money you can get. And I understand transparency is important, but I also think, especially if you're talking to a Division III school, that conversation gets really dicey really quick. Um, Understanding that there's a process through which financial aid will operate for each institution, and it varies from school to school. Some will require early decisions and pre-read. Some it's open enrollment, and financial aid just puts out packages as soon as they can get them. So I think understanding the process of each institution is very important. And my number one piece of advice: take notes on everything. Do your hit research. And I know we as coaches a lot, we'll get recruiting calls from a kid. And I actually just had one a couple minutes ago where they were traveling. They were in the car heading on vacation. They scheduled that call with me. And I'm like, I don't want to bother you, but I also know you're not writing down anything that I'm saying. So I think that you want to make sure you keep that information, and it works great for comparing pros and cons of each institution that you're talking to. And one other piece of advice for all recruits: if you're not interested in the school, tell them. Don't ghost us. We're adults, we can take rejection.
Ghosting is a big problem these days. All right, Meg, you're up.
Yeah, excuse me. I think I echo a lot of what you were saying, Eric. I think doing your due diligence is really important, and having like a clear reason why you're interested in schools, right? Even, obviously beginning in the recruiting process, there's a lot of getting to know the institution and the team and all the ins and outs, but I think it's really important to have a good reason why you're interested. That's something that I personally like to see, like why MIT beyond just MIT, I think is really important. But I think my biggest piece of advice is finding the right fit. I think that's really important. And Eric, you were talking about that. I think it's so much more than just one part of it, and it's so much deeper than just the swimming piece. I like to think, and I say this often, that happy swimmers are fast swimmers, and so that comes from the whole experience, right? The 4 years at the institution and life beyond. So I think while swimming is a very important part of the experience, it's not everything. So making sure that the community is what you're looking for, the academics are in line with what your vision is, the alumni networking is good and strong and something that your values align with. The post-college job opportunities are robust. If you want to do research, that you have access to that. That if you're interested in different kinds of clubs, that's at the school too, right? I think it's so much bigger than just swimming and diving. And I think find the place where you're happy, and I think it's always a bummer when we lose recruits, of course, but ultimately, if MIT is not the right fit for them, then like I want them to be happy, right? I want them to find the place where they're going to thrive, and then it'll be so much better for them. So I think find the place where you're going to be happy is my number one piece of advice.
Awesome. And Olga.
Yeah, it's difficult to add anything because it's really important to like do research and like probably be authentic and aware that you will probably spend next 4 years at this institution, and it should be like memorable and really good years. So yeah, probably.
So I'm going to ask all three of you this. Did you, or can you tell us an example of like maybe an all-star recruit that you had? Like what really knocked your socks off and what made them stand out from the crowd?
I think for me, the one that blew me the way the most is I had a young lady. She's now an orthopedic surgeon. So I definitely got lucky on the grade standpoint. But I think what blew me away is like when she made contact with me, typical email, had a couple good phone calls. She came and visited our campus, and I said, "Well, what are some questions you had for me?" And she goes, "Okay, well, the biggest one is who's your number one recruit and why am I them?" And I went, okay, the confidence that I had from that young lady, and the preparedness. Like she brought a binder into the room and was writing down all the notes. And I felt like it made me uncomfortable, but made me uncomfortable in a good way. But yeah, when you have a swimmer walk in and do that to you and drop that question, yeah, they just became your number one recruit regardless. And she ended up being a captain for us. She was a national champion, and she was the very first female orthopedic resident at one of the hospitals in Chattanooga, Tennessee. So, yeah, the sky's the limit for her. I envision her working for Johns Hopkins at some point in her life because somebody's going to tell her she can't, and then she's going to go do it. But I think that was the experience that really blew me the way the most. And also, just a side note on it, I had another kid who came on campus, didn't know that they wanted to swim. I think it was mom was making that decision for him. Came on our campus, toured it, fell in love with the school, and sat there in a meeting. And mom's leading the charge. And he goes, "Coach, can I just have a scholarship offer? I'm coming to school here." And I mean, he made that decision on his own. And I knew going into the meeting, he was maybe 50-50. He was swimming in college. And he turned out to be an incredible asset for our program for 4 years, was an All-American. And he's currently in corporate right now with UPS. So anytime my packages are late, I give him a text message and tell him he's got to work on that. So
That's great. Meg?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that stand out about recruits throughout the process. I think, largely I'm looking for people who are really organized because then I think, when they get to a place like MIT, if they're organized in the process and responsive to emails and can like carry themselves well on a phone call and are just generally responsive and thoughtful in their communication, I feel like they'll do well here. But something that really stands out about one of our most successful athletes in my time here is during the recruiting process, the one thing that I knew for certain the whole time is that she loved swimming. Like she loved swimming so much, and she was just so excited to swim in college. And it wasn't as if like I need to do this in college to be a successful swimmer. Like it wasn't like she had these very strict goals. It was just like, I love swimming. I love being a part of a team, and I'm really excited for this opportunity. And that mentality carried her through all 4 years, and it completely changed the culture of our team and like the trajectory of our performance because it's infectious, right? Like I think what I want is for when people get to this stage of their swimming career, oftentimes it's their last stop, right? It's their last competitive stop. It's the last chance that they get to be a part of a team like this and be held accountable like this. I often find that the people who love swimming and love being a part of a team, they perform lights out, and I think it's because it's just like this, it's a really awesome momentum. Like we talk about like a snowball effect, right? That it builds and builds and builds. And so I think back to this person in the recruiting process, and I'm like, I didn't really like, you don't know everybody super well, right? Like, one side of them is very one-dimensional in the recruiting process, but then the one thing that stayed true, she's an amazing person, but from start to finish, loves swimming, still continues to love swimming, and I know swimming will always be an important part of her life. But I think that was something that, no matter how hard your day gets here, no matter how tough classes are or whatever it may be, if you love swimming and you look forward to being here and you really appreciate the opportunity to be a part of a team, good things happen.
Awesome. And Olga.
Probably prefer to skip this question because I don't have big experience. As I said, it was my first year. But one thing probably that I can a little bit back up from previous conversation, what the one worstest thing that athletes can do during, for example, like campus visit or like communicate with a coach. For example, for us, when we located in Miami, and they need to be careful about their thoughts and what they are like saying out loud, because some people like starting communicate, oh, it's fun, like a lot of party and like ocean, and probably I would like recommend athletes and like coaches who will communicate with their athletes, talk with them about like they should be prepared and like think what they're saying like out loud.
Yeah, that's always the tough one because you're in the moment and you're just reacting, and sometimes that's tough. So, all right, this was a great talk here on a recruiting process. So we're going to shift our transition to our scholarships, financial aid, and support question. So, how does your school support swimmers financially, especially in ways that might surprise people? And can you discuss the financial aid process at your institution? So, Eric, we're heading back to you.
Um, my institution is kind of unique in how we support it. Um, we do offer athletic scholarship as part of the NAIA, and most NAIA schools do offer athletic aid, and they are able to combine academic and or merit-based aid with their athletic aid. We do not do that here at Cumberlands, but that's because we have something that's very unique. We have a separate endowment from our school's general endowment that we use to supplement aid. So in a nutshell, every student that attends the University of the Cumberlands pays $4,000, and that's all in. And that's room and board, meals, tuition, and books are free. So it doesn't matter whether I give you $1 of swimming scholarship or I give you $10,000 of swimming scholarship. You still pay $4,000 to go to school. And that came about simply because our president years ago saw the changing of academics in the collegiate world, and we made a conscious shift to put more resources in because we were increasing our tuition every year. And not, I mean, not that we weren't giving a good education, but they weren't getting more for their buck. It was just paying the bills. So the endowment came about, and this is our second full year utilizing it. I can tell you it has been a windfall for our institution. We are no longer as reliant on athletes for enrollment as we once were, but at the same time, we're able to bring in quality students and quality athletes to our program, and know that they're going to leave college without student loans. I think that's the biggest one. They don't have to take a student loan out unless they want to, and I don't have a single athlete right now that has taken one as far as of right now. I don't know about the freshmen just yet, but I think that's unique to us. But I also know, and I'm speaking for the NAIA as a whole. I think what surprises most people is the amount of aid that is available in the NAIA for student athletes to get that experience, especially combining academic and athletic together, plus need-based aid once their FAFSA goes in. I think that is a major selling point for us in the NAIA. And I know other institutions can do things, but I sent my son to a school in Boston, and I can tell you right now, they financial aid was not their strong point. Thankfully, he was a really good student, but I think it's important that for us at the University of the Cumberlands is we're providing a quality education that's affordable. And my own son goes to school here, so I can't complain too much. His older brother, yeah, we're not going to talk about him. He decided he wanted to spend money, but the younger one was he was the business major, so he figured out economics pretty quick.
Meg, go ahead.
Um, so for us at MIT, we have no athletic scholarship, right? And that's across Division III. Eric, you had mentioned that earlier. No athletic scholarships, but I think every school in Division III has very, I guess I can't speak largely, but there's financial aid available, and I think it's worth investigating. Even, for us, we have It's not merit-based, it's all need-based aid. You can go online to our financial services website and complete the net price calculator and talk to our financial services folks, and they're incredibly helpful. And I think MIT does a really good job of trying to make MIT affordable and accessible for all. And I think we're really, fortunate in that way. And, like obviously, you look at the price tag of a school like MIT and it's quite high, but I think again, MIT does a lot of really amazing things to try to make it accessible for everybody. And so, this is not my area of expertise, right? In the recruiting process, I will refer people to financial services. I will help in whatever way that we can. We don't do early financial reads. But oftentimes, MIT again will try their best. So I think it's just different at every single institution, and I think rather than just looking at the sticker price and seeing high numbers, I think it's worth it to ask questions, to do the net price calculators, to just, follow up and see if it could be something that works for the recruit's family. Yeah.
And Olga.
So for D2 schools, it's a lot of options, like an opportunity to find like financial aid, and but it's difficult to like say in total, because every head coach, they have probably their own like formula how they doing these things, and it's like really good to have a call and like try, as Eric mentioned, not in the first call probably ask the head coach about this, but do research, yes, because it's for like our school, it's a lot, and for my head coach, it's a lot depend of their like GPA, their like academic success, and but again, like it depend of who they are looking for. Yes, if they're really looking for some like breaststroker or butterfly, they will do like some exceptions. So yeah, it's we have a lot of benefits, and probably that's what in division two they're pretty like competitive. A lot of like teams swim in a really high level. So it's good to do like research and try to communicate with the head coach directly if you're interested in this school.
So for all of your programs here, are any of you bound with number of slots based on your scholarships, based on your financial aid? Can you talk a little bit about more about that?
I actually am for the first time ever because of this shift in our financial aid and our focus with the Cumberlands commitment, and that was the endowment I mentioned earlier. We went from an institution that was about 65% athletes, probably even higher than that. I think they were fudging the numbers on us. To now, our goal by next fall is to be about 30% athletes. So we've reduced a lot of our large rosters. At one point, I carried a roster of 72, which I can tell you, having a 6-lane, 25-yard pool, that was entertaining. I spent a lot more time on the pool deck than I had ever planned, but we made it work, and we still provided a quality environment for our athletes. We are going to be restricted to 25 men, 25 women. And I say restricted, and they're not gonna hold my feet to the flame on it, because they understand that some of those are going to be divers, and most of them are going to be swimmers. But by and large, though, when you're talking about NAIA institutions, I am the exception. I don't know of anybody else that is going to have any caps on their rosters. In fact, most of those institutions are pushing for higher numbers. I know there's a few. There was one NAIA school that apparently was closing in on 90 athletes. I'm not sure how they navigated it, but that was not my problem. But for us, we are capped at 25 and 25 approximately.
And Meg?
Yeah, we don't have a cap. I think we have roster numbers that our administration would like us to have. Right now we have for this upcoming year, we have close to 40 women, close to 35 men. So, Eric, it sounds like that the team that you used to have, and it's a lot. We're fortunate with our facilities here that we have a bigger pool, but it's still a lot of people. So I think having probably closer to between 30 to 35 is an ideal roster number, but I believe in opportunities, right? And the people on the team, if they're going to positively contribute to the program, I'm psyched. And I think it'll be good. But we are not dealing with a strict number that we have to have on the roster. We're not dealing, we don't have like a number of athletes that we must recruit every year. So we're fortunate for that.
That's awesome. And Olga.
So for Barry, it's the swimming, it was new program they added 2 years ago, and we unfortunately don't have our swim pool, so we're using like private school, 25 yards, but it's 10 lanes. So in our institution, they want us have like 25 men, 25 women. We close to that, and it's probably the like maximum number. So.
Okay, so it sounds like there's a lot of opportunities. It sounds like if you put the time and the effort and energy in, you can find a school, especially when you hear things like, oh, we don't have a roster cap. And if you're going to positively affect us, then let's bring them on board. So this is great. So on that fine note, we're going to go ahead and transition over to the student athlete experience. So can you talk a little bit more about your team culture, the training, and the campus life? And how does the academic athletic balance at your division benefit your swimmers? So Eric, kicking it back to you.
The infamous recruit favorite question to ask. What's your team culture like? It's great. It's rainbows and lollipops. No, and I can say that right now we probably have the best culture we've had in a very long time with our women's program. Our men is improving dramatically. A couple of years ago, we probably had the best team success-wise on our men we've ever had, and it was the most disappointing year of my career, mainly because of the people that were involved. We had a great group of freshmen come in this past year that were hungry. They wanted to be a part of a team. They were excited, and it was across the board. And this coming freshman class is a lot of the same, and our returners are excited about it. So I think we've got a good culture. We preach a lot about lift up, not tear down. And one of the things that we talk about is also using truth with grace. It's important that you're honest with one another, but doing it in a constructive way. And ironically, the person who has the biggest problem with that is me, because I tend to be a little too blunt. But we really try to focus on respect and pulling each other up as opposed to any negative a negative environment as a whole. I think our campus life is awesome. We're in rural Kentucky. We're in the foothills of Appalachia. So this isn't Miami. This isn't Boston or anything like that. And I've been to both cities many times, so I know it's a little more laid back. We're country here. It's a little hillbilly, but the environment is awesome. We're located right on the Cumberland River. It runs through downtown. So for our team bonding, we're going canoeing on the Cumberland River for 2 hours, and it's going to be a great experience. 50 athletes in a canoe trip. I don't know what I'm thinking, but we'll see how it goes. But I think that being in a smaller town and the environment, it makes the community on campus that much closer. One of the things that we preach all the time on our campus is one big team, and we support all of our other activities, whether it's our football team, women's wrestling, archery, you name it. We're in full support of one another. And I think that has played heavily in the recent years to the fact that Cumberlands has won the last two Learfield Directors Cups for the NAIA, which gives them the title of Best Athletic Department. And I think that's not, I'd love to say we contributed to that, but last year I didn't. We didn't do as well nationally, so my points didn't count. But I think that we do a great job of promoting life on campus, promoting the activities that are here, and making sure that our students are involved in life outside the pool. And we make sure as coaches that they have that balance academically and athletically. We have a great academic supports center here on campus to help people with study skill sessions, note taking. If they need study tables, we set it up for them. We as coaches, because that's one of the many hats that we wear at the NAIA level, is that I'm an admissions counselor, I'm their academic advisor, I'm their babysitter, I'm their psychologist. So we do our due diligence to make sure that our athletes academically get everything done. Our women had a 3.66 GPA this past spring, and our men had the highest GPA in the NAIA with a 3.75. So as I told them, either you guys are great students or you figured out how to use ChatGTP better than anybody else. But either way, good for you.
Gotta love ChatGPT. Meg.
I guess I'll start with the institution first and how, you asked about campus life and then how that, bleeds into team culture. So a lot of people know MIT for its math, its science, its engineering. And oftentimes it comes with a reputation of just being really hard and really hard to get into, right? And those are sort of first impressions. But I think from the inside, MIT is really collaborative. It's really hard to get here, but once they're here, it's designed to um, be really collaborative, to pull out the best in each other, to push the students in a lot of ways. But I think most of the classes, the work is designed to be done in partners and small groups and large groups, and yeah, ultimately, like I said, very collaborative and really caring. And I think we try to take the same approach with our team. We try to take a person first approach where, they matter as people first, not just as swimmers and divers, but ultimately like how they're doing just matters, right? So I think we have a very collaborative, engaging environment. Our culture, I think is good, but it's something that I'm always paying attention to because it changes all the time. It changes every year. You graduate seniors and you bring in this new group of people. And, our women's team is coming off a really amazing year, but I think we always need to reassess and see what can be better. And, our men's team is also, fired up and ready for next year. So I think, the team culture piece is something that we're always looking at. So in the true spirit of MIT, I try to make sure that it's collaborative and that they have a voice. I think as students here, they have a lot of autonomy. They have a lot of involvement in big decisions here. So I think I again try to take that same approach. And yeah, generally, I think we try to have a lot of fun because, as I mentioned earlier, I want people to want to be here, right? I want at practices at 5 o'clock here. I want at 5 o'clock people to walk on deck and be psyched, right? To have something that's completely different from their academic lives, that they're fired up, they're ready to rock and roll, they're ready to just have a lot of fun and have a great practice. And so I think, yeah, there's a lot of things about our team culture that I try to mirror with how we do things at the Institute. But I think overall, I try to make sure that it's fun, it's collaborative, and people really want to be here.
Awesome. And Olga.
Yeah, for new team, it's probably like my head coach. He said it's work in progress about culture, so we're still working on this, and it's a big part of the recruitment process that he doing. And yeah, like campus life, it's a big part of our program, like team program. So we're doing a lot of things outside the swimming pool, and we're pretty fortunate. We're in Miami, and we're doing like beach practice and like team bonding outside the campus sometimes. So it's a lot of opportunity to be here and like enjoy the not only the training like any like education, yeah, like you're learning, studying things. So, but in the same time, it's like we're trying to work and balance all these things, and we'll see how it will go.
I think that's kind of the best part is that you get to build it up as you're going along and make the best from there. So, all right, and we're moving on to our competition and performance question here. So, obviously, you get to have the great campus life, you get to do all these wonderful things. So, give us a little bit of an example of your meet schedule. Tell us about your high performance or your national success from your division that people maybe don't know and they aren't aware of.
From a schedule standpoint, the beautiful thing about being where we're located in the country, as well as our success as a program, is that we swim anybody. We have a lot of NAIA schools that are near us, which there aren't a lot of programs across the United States. Geographically, a lot of club coaches may not even know about the NAIA. So we have a lot of teams in our area that we can compete against, but we also compete against Division One, Division Two, Division Three schools in dual meets or in our invites. Our mid-season meet is at a great facility at a Division Three school here in Kentucky. We have our conference championships and our national championships, and but that's separate from Divisions One, Two, and Three. But we get an opportunity to race top level programs. We were actually, and this is before my time. Apparently, we were the very first team to ever compete against the University of Tennessee at the Allen Jones Aquatic Center. They won. I don't know that it was close, but I mean, it's still that great environment and the respect that Coach Kredich had to swim us and give us that opportunity was awesome. And they returned the favor. They came to our campus the next year, and that was the year before I got to Cumberlands. But we've competed against all levels. From an athletic national success, I mean, in a conference success, our women have won 13 straight conference championships, and there have only been 13 conference championships, so that we're the only name on the trophy. The men have won 10 out of 13, and from a national championship standpoint, with the exception of 2021, or where we did not have a national championship, and 20, and actually for the women it was 2023. We finished in the top five at our national championships for the women every single year in my tenure at Cumberlands, and for the men, we've been top six. So we're consistently in the race. Obviously, we all want the big trophy. Our goal is still pushing towards that, but I think we're doing it the right way and building the program in that direction. There's a few teams I got to get over the hump for, but I think the nice thing is from a national success standpoint is that our athletes are always focused in on performing their best on the biggest stage. And that's why we're willing to schedule teams where, okay, we're going to sacrifice a win in a dual meet, but man, we're going to get some great racing. And there are a few schools that I'm still trying to get on the schedule that I know I'm going to get stomped, but you know, I'm going to get some great racing out of that. So that's the goal for me.
Awesome, Meg.
Yeah, so I think being in a city like Boston has major advantages. You know, being here in New England, we can populate our schedule with some amazing competition. And I would say the furthest drive that we have every other year is about 3 hours. So, you know, we're not spending lots of time on a bus, we're not flying to dual meets. So we're lucky in that way. You know, right down the street is Harvard, Northeastern is across the city, BU is literally across the river, Tufts isn't very far from here. And we have just some amazing dual meets. We have a mid-season invite that we host here at home every year with some amazing teams. We do have some teams flying in for that, which is nice. But I think that we have a great schedule, you know, with, like I said, those local schools in Boston and then some other amazing Division III schools. You know, shout out to Williams College. Hey, Allie. And I think, you know, like we focus on our dual meets to, you know, Eric, I have a similar approach. Like we want to really nail down race strategy and get after it. I'm not super concerned about the score at the end of the day. Like it's exciting, right? When, you know, we have a close win and some really good races, but I think ultimately it's practice for what I like to call the big show at the end of the year, you know, the lead up to the championship season in February and March, conferences in February, and then the national championships in March. And I think Division III is amazing because it provides the opportunity, like all of our areas, to be successful at any level, right? If it's a personal best time, if it's a school record holder, conference record holder, national record holder, national champion, All-American, I think whatever a swimmer wants to achieve, it's possible at any level. You know, and we've been fortunate here at MIT to have some pretty good success. As I mentioned earlier, our women's team is coming off of a historic season. We won the Division III national championship for the first time in program history. And that was just awesome. Still struggle to find words for that. Honestly, I'm so proud of them. And it's been this really awesome momentum that's been building. And our men's team finished ninth, and like I said, they're super fired up after watching the women do big things. And so I'm excited for what the future holds. You know, I don't think we'll ever be the program that only defines ourselves based on the success at the end of the year. I think it's success has many definitions, and as I mentioned, it comes in many forms. But I think, yeah, there's something for everybody, right? And so, even beyond the NCAA season, we've had people from our program go on to represent at various national meets. You know, we've had people at Olympic trials, and which is super cool, right? I think it really embodies the whole student athlete experience.
100%. And Olga.
So we're pretty fortunate here in Florida. We compete in a Sunshine State Conference, and it's big names like Tampa University and NOAA. And during the season, like have a lot of dual meets and like part of outside campus life when we travel. We're not flying anywhere. It's like, yeah, as Megan said, it's like 2.5, 3 hours maximum drive for us too. but it's a lot of fun. Spend time together and have this experience. And yeah, it's a lot of opportunities. So the last year, 5 our athletes qualified for NCAA championship, and it was really a great experience for me as a coach to compete in Indianapolis. And yeah, so D2, it's a lot of opportunities and options to join the schools and have this amazing experience, even like at NCAA.
So it sounds like as long as you put in your research, as long as you put the time and the effort in to make sure that you fit, there are so many opportunities available for you, for your swimmers, and for everybody involved in the entire situation. So we are doing great here on time. We have about 5 more minutes until we open it up for Q&A. So before we close this down, to the last or for the last question here, what is the biggest thing that you think that the viewers, especially those who are watching the recording or can't watch the entire episode here, what do you think that they should take away from this Ask Alive? And what is your biggest piece of advice for the next steps if somebody's interested in swimming in your division?
I think the biggest thing the viewers should take away from this is that fast swimming is fast swimming, regardless of what the label is on the school, whether it's D1, 2, 3, NAIA, NJCAA. But also, more importantly, opportunity is opportunity. I've had athletes, and I think we all have had athletes who could go, female athlete goes 23 in the 50 free. Yes, we want that. But we've had they go 27, 28, 29, and they're part of your family. They're part of your environment, and they contribute to your program in a positive way, more so than what the stopwatch says or what the timing system will spit out for you. So I think for the club coaches in the room, encourage your athletes to look beyond what the label is for an institution and look at the opportunities they're given and not dissuade anybody from the dream of swimming in college. There is a fit. It doesn't matter whether it's in my institution in the NAIA, and obviously I'm gonna speak the highest of it because that's who I represent right now. But 15 years ago, I was a mid-major Division I coach, so I'm kind of a mercenary in that regard. But I was also a club coach, and I helped athletes get to Power Five schools all the way down to NJCAA. But I found them homes, I found them opportunities, I found them resources to pay for college when maybe they didn't have it, and they found a community. They found a place where they were they loved what they were doing, and they loved being a part of the environment on the campus as well as on the team. So.
And then
Yeah, I think Eric, what you said is great. I think to the club coaches in the room, encouraging your athletes to explore all options and to find the place where they're going to be happy. And I like to also I say this to my athletes a lot of trust your gut. I think that also reigns true in the college recruiting process. I think staying true to yourself and a timeline that feels good for you and asking the hard questions, but ultimately at the end of the day, like trusting your gut and doing what feels right, I think is really important. But yeah, just gonna echo that there's something for everybody. There's a program out there. I think impact comes in all shapes and sizes, right? It comes not just from performance, but it also comes from a culture perspective. So I think find a place that you're happy and where you can have a positive impact.
and Olga.
So I'm probably one of these coaches in the room because I have this international experience. And like 3 years ago, before I moved to the US, I even mostly I heard only about Division I. And now, even when I communicate with athletes, when I help club program, not a lot of them aware that they can swim in a college. So it's probably really good when it's only we as a coaches can do this education thing for our swimmers to communicate with them and open their eyes and provide them some kind of information that it's not only D1 schools, it's a lot of other options if they really want to swim and enjoy the swimming and want to continue this experience. after the school. So yeah, it's would love to encourage everyone talk more with their athletes and give them advice like Google, research, and explore.
Awesome. So we ended right on time here, 1:45, with all of our questions. So if anybody would like to throw some questions here in the chat, or if you'd like to come off of mute, because I know we're a smaller group today. I see Brian here. So with the homeschool phenomenon and COVID, what are the do's and the don'ts for the very engaged parent?
Do's and don'ts. Do encourage your child to do their research and don't do the research for them. And it's really as simple as that. I think, and I was going to say, put this on there at the back end. I completely forgot about it. The internet is an amazing resource, but it also, there's a lot of misinformation that's out there, and you have to be able to sift through that. I think the parents should be able to go through and help navigate that misinformation. I'm a huge advocate of every athlete having a SwimCloud account. You don't have to pay for it if there's free ones, but making sure that's up to date, because SwimCloud is turning into the number one recruiting resource for every coach, and we all use it in some capacity. Some of us more than others, but I think from a do's and don'ts standpoint for parents is just let them find their home and don't pick it for them, because I've seen what happens when athletes get their institution chose for them by mom and dad, and it doesn't end well. Athletes they're not happy with their choice, and they end up not swimming anymore. They leave the sport altogether. But COVID definitely changed a lot with recruiting, both from a coach, a parent, an athlete perspective. Some of it was good, some of it was not so good. But do's and don'ts, absolutely. Um, you want to make sure you're encouraging them to do the research, because the more invested the student is in the recruiting process, the more invested they're going to be in that institution, and coaches are going to see that. They really are. I don't answer emails from moms and dads. I know that's terrible. I shouldn't be that. I'm a little too old school that way, but I want to talk to the athlete.
But that's pretty standard, right? You are not going to engage with a parent.
No, no. If a parent wants to be in on the call with an athlete, absolutely. I have no issues with that whatsoever. And from a safe sports standpoint, I think that's very important. So that way, the communication. But you're right. Mom sends me an email on behalf of their child. How do I know that their child is interested, or mom and dad saw my price sticker? That's where it is for me. And I actually had a meeting in my office yesterday where the mom asked 40 questions. I'm not kidding. 40 questions. The child asked zero. So I the parents took over the room, and it makes me, and I understand this generation has a different level of social awkwardness, and I'm Generation X, and we don't. Our awkwardness is a little more aggressive, but it's at the same time, it's like I want to be able to have communications with this athlete, and I'm going to schedule a call with her because I want to talk with her. I want to get to know the individual, not just what mom and dad have to say.
And I know I want feedback from the other coaches as well, but you mentioned SwimCloud. How far back are you looking?
That's the beautiful thing about SwimCloud, man. Greg Earhart has made it so I can see the graph of their progression. For me, I'm not going to speak for Olga or for Meg on this one. For me, I'm looking 2 years generally. So if like I'm talking to the class of 2027, I'm starting to look at their freshman year, but that's mostly for the ladies. For the guys, maturity levels on physical maturity of men, we all know is so much higher now, that I'm looking at that actual year, because I'll freak out if I get a commitment from a fast swimmer and then he gets even faster. Like, oh, whose radar did he just jump on? But I generally look 2 or 3 years at most. I'm not going to look any further than that.
And Meg?
Yeah, I would say about the same. I love looking at trajectory. I love looking at improvement curves. And then if there's like some maybe like ups and downs in a career, I think that just provides hopefully a good conversation with the recruit to get a little bit more information about their swimming story and experiences. But we're here we're definitely looking at like the bigger picture, just to see trajectory and all of that. And then about the parent piece, I think it's really important to talk to the parents. I agree with Eric that I would rather be emailing with what I think is the recruit, right? That they're signing off on the emails, that they're the ones scheduling the calls. But I do I do like to talk to the parents in the process. I think parents have really good questions, but I can empathize with you, Eric, of sitting in a meeting where the parent is the only one asking the questions. And I would just love for the parent to let the swimmer, diver ask the questions and then jump in with things that might have been missed. But I do think that they're an important part, but I think it's really important to let the recruit take the lead. And I think, yeah, that's my take on the parent piece in Swim Club.
And Olga.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. It's difficult to add anything, especially about parents. So it's like really good advice that coaches can give their swimmers, and when they have this opportunity to talk with parents, that they definitely should help their swimmers prepare before the school or like campus visit before they start talk with the head coach.
Those are all really good insights. I was actually a homeschool swimmer, obviously not during the COVID era, but Brian, if you have other questions, I am coming from that perspective directly. So happy to talk with you about that as well. I know that when I went through it way back when, and I won't hijack this for too long, but I think the biggest thing was my mom was a very engaged parent. So I directed her towards all of the, at the time, NCAA clearinghouse items, whereas I took care of all of the recruiting questions, the phone calls, and that fun stuff. So I know that there were a lot different hoops back then for homeschool swimmers, that they had to have everything in line with their transcripts, academic items. So she got to direct her energy there, and I got to talk to all the coaches. I see another question here that came through. Any specific advice for a high school coach in assisting/guiding the swimmer in recruiting? Is it the same as you gave to a club coach?
I think coming from a club coach's perspective, because I did that for 10 years and I was very fortunate. I had a head coach that was very active in the recruiting process. And again, this was in the infancy of emails. So I think for club coaches and college coaches at the beginning of every year, sit down with the families and high school as well, high school coaches, sit down at the beginning of the year with your families and your athletes and say, hey, if you're thinking about swimming in college, here are some things that you need to navigate. Here, understanding what dead periods are. So do your research as well in preparing, because I'm a moderator on a Facebook group for parents, and parents don't know what a dead period is at the Division I level, and they don't understand that there's no recruiting contact during that time. But educating your students and Marshall Goldman, who used to be the head coach at Tennessee Aquatics, used to make all of his juniors write 20 emails to college coaches, whether they were interested or not in that school, but just getting the practice of communicating with coaches to introduce themselves. And also, if you know that your athlete is looking at MIT or Barry or the University of the Cumberlands, they say, yeah, I talked to this loudmouth coach from Kentucky, Cumberlands, I think his name is. Shoot me an email, shoot the coach an email. Tell us, hey, if you go after this kid, you're getting a great one. This is a hard worker. Because I vet my recruits. I send out questions, either myself or my assistant, to high school coaches, to club coaches, because I want to know who I'm getting. And 90% of the time we get rainbows and lollipops for a response. We're not going to get anything bad, but we're going to get some honest ones. I've had somebody said flat out, all the talent in the world, man, but I hope somebody can unlock it. I really do. And I didn't get that young man. He went to a friend of mine, and it took a couple years for them to unlock it with him, because I guess it was a work ethic issue. But again, those are things that we want to know. So I encourage club and high school coaches to be as engaged as much as possible in the process, as much as the athletes are comfortable. I think that's a big one. There was a high school coach out of Indiana that every year he would send me the list of his juniors and seniors, and I got one, and she ended up being a national champion. So it worked out. So, but I say, talk with your athletes, find out who they're talking to, and then reach out. We're never going to turn down a letter of recommendation, and if anybody does, I'd be shocked.
I have nothing to add. I think I echo everything that Eric said. I think it's always good to hear multiple perspectives, right? Because a high school coach might see a different side than a club coach. So any and all perspective is certainly welcome. I think I like the way you use the word unlock, Eric. I think there's a lot, as I mentioned earlier, like we're not going to know everything and anything about a recruit. That's impossible, right? So the more data, information, anything that we have to help the swimmer be the best that they can be when they arrive and their whole life completely changes when they get to college, I think is useful information.
Uh, s- so, like my experience, I'm really grateful, ASCA, that we have this mentoring group, and like during this season, I communicate with other coaches, and most of them was from club, and it's like really good kind like iCloud, amazing resource, but when you can like hear directly from some club coaches that they can connect with the good athletes, and like you can hear not only see data like their improvement, but and kind of know a little bit personality. It can works too. So communication and connection works really good. Some club coaches like texting and saying, "Hi, my kid will be on your campus visit. He's really good." Like talk a little, like said a little bit about his personality, and we like probably head coach can pay more attention. So it's like it's a lot of way that club coaches can communicate with college coaches probably.
Can I say one thing real quick, Ariel? I know we got to move on. I think there may be another question, but one of the things too that I pick up a lot when I talk to high school coaches and club coaches is one of the questions I always ask them directly is like, talk to me about your training style, your training philosophy, because I have a lot of athletes that I'm not a high yardage guy. I'm not a USRPT guy, but I'm not. I swam for those guys who did 10K in a practice. I don't do that. My ADHD won't allow it. But I have athletes a lot of times that come from programs like that, and they're excited to do what we're doing, but it's a paradigm shift. They've got to learn that there's different paths and there's different avenues of training. And I want to know what the coaches are doing, because sometimes if I'm struggling to unlock that with an athlete, I want that connection already in place with that club coach or high school coach and saying, hey, what were some things that worked to motivate them or get them to in a training mindset. So yeah, I think that's an important one is that dialogue. And I think it's underrated now, especially with as much technology as we have. We should be communicating more with club and high school coaches. I got away from it for a little while, and I've circled back around, and I think that has really helped my culture and also understanding my athletes.
Awesome. All right, so we have one last question here, and then I will close this out. So recruiting timelines seem to vary a lot between schools and are constantly shifting. What is your recruiting timeline? Are you primarily looking for early decision, regular decision, or both? If you make an offer, do you give recruits a deadline to decide? And then how do you recommend recruits handle conflicting timelines between different schools?
Great question. I have always told, and I tell every single recruit, whether they come to my school or not, the timeline is dependent on the athlete. And there are Division I coaches that hate my guts for doing that because they want that class now. They want to lock their 27s like in the next month so they can start focusing on their 28s. The timeline is ultimately the athletes and what they decide. And I've always said this, if a coach is putting that much pressure on you to make a decision, that is not the program you need to be involved in. And that includes mine as well. My timeline, I'm just now starting talking to 2027s, which is new. This is brand new for us, but because of the shift in the Division I timeline of the June 15th open up time, I think more and more Division II, Division III, and NAIA coaches are realizing we're not going to be able to wait until January or February to start talking to kids because their lists are going to already be narrowed down for groups. So for me, my timeline has already started with the rising juniors, but I'm still recruiting the class of 26 as well. I will put a deadline on a scholarship offer, but that's mainly because of my institution and the fact that I have a roster cap. I need to know if those spots are going to be filled or not. But not every school is going to be that way. I think it's important that recruits ask those questions of what is a deadline. Like I gave an offer yesterday to a recruit. The deadline is October 31st. I think they have time. But I wanted to put it out there so that I reserved that spot because I felt that that recruit was important to our program, not just for what they do in the pool. They're a 4.0 student, they're pre-med, and their club coach raved about the leader that they were. So I wanted to lock that spot up so that, but I'm also going to give them the time. But some coaches, I've heard stories, and I've done it with conflicting timelines. We gave a deadline to a girl that was in the middle of an official visit to another institution. That's when I was coaching D1. So she had to make a decision whether she was accepting an offer while she was in the middle of another school's overnight visit weekend. And she chose us. That put their coach in an awkward position, but our head coach made that call. So.
Really quickly, I think for us, we don't provide timelines. Our process is a little bit different. We're looking mostly for recruits to apply early action, because then they'll find out in mid-December on the decision. And, I think we don't provide a lot of pressure, similar to what you said, Eric. The application's due November 1st. We don't have as much of a guarantee with our admissions. So we're trying to identify, highly qualified students from the academic side, really talented swimmers and divers. And so, yeah, I think we're looking for people to apply early action, and then we find out in mid-December. And I think handling recruits with conflicting timelines, I think we just try to provide all of the information about MIT and give them as much space as they need, and answer any questions that they have or their families have, and we just try to be there for them. I wouldn't. Yeah, I think that's kind of the general idea, is we just try to work with everybody on an individual basis.
Olga?
Yeah, it's probably difficult to say in general because it's a lot about like individual basis. But so we open for 26 and 27, and probably it's a little bit different for us, like men and women side. And the most important part is like the biggest probably request from any coaches will be like, if the athletes not really interested in this institution, it will be like every coach will really appreciate that they will send this text and like do not make head coach wait and answer. So it's all like about communication things.
And Andrew, I see you have a very quick question. If we can keep it very quick, you can come unmute.
Yeah, so I'm a college coach. I've just started my 4th year at Allegheny College, and I was wondering if you guys had any insight on kind of international recruiting, just because I've kind of took that out of myself as of seeing what I can what pops out on like Ireland or kind of different countries. So I just had like any insight on if you've had any luck with in that realm, if that makes sense.
50% of my team is international. So yeah.
Okay.
The easiest way to describe international recruiting compared to American recruiting is there's a lot less negotiating that happens in terms of scholarships for me. And I know Allegheny is Division III. It's a little different process in terms of that. Institutions have different rules on international students and so forth. But for me, honestly, the third or fourth question that I ask an international recruit is, "What's your budget?" And then I can kind of give them an estimate of what it would be out of pocket. So I think that's the biggest one. And I know Division III, it's a lot harder internationally because of the lack of academic aid. But as Meg has mentioned, D3 schools do a phenomenal job with financial aid packages, and that sticker price does not, and you know this from your own recruiting there, but international recruiting, those kids are going to be, they want a number as fast as possible.
Yeah.
They really do. And I'm sure Olga can echo that, because I know Barry's got a few international athletes as well. But and it also it varies from country to country, and it also varies from recruiting agents that you work with. There are some recruiting agents out there that are phenomenal, and then there are some that I don't know how they're not in jail. And I'm being honest on that. I know one that actually had to move countries because of their practices in one. So.
And Meg and Olga quickly weigh in so we can get you out of here.
Yeah, sorry, Megan. I probably can say like when I work in Belarus, a few of my athletes, one of them still studying in jury. So, that's Eric already mentioned that it's really important for these athletes know like how yeah about like scholarship because like especially like from post-Soviet Union like Russia, Belarus, Ukraine the family they are cannot pay a lot of money so they most of them will look for like all scholarship or like some other benefits so yeah it's absolutely different process communicate with international than with Americans.
I'm not sure I have much unique information to add. I think something that is a good challenge, a unique challenge on our side is the trying to understand the academic information. I mean, even across the states, right? Every school is very different, and I think we just have to do a little deeper investigating onto the academic side when we have international people in the pool.
Great.
Wonderful.
That was a great question. Yeah, thank you for all that. So I know it's 2:06. I want to be very respectful of people's time. I've already kept you 6 minutes over, but thank you so much to our wonderful panel here for hopping on today. We are very deeply appreciative of having you all on here and for sharing your expertise. I do plan on sending this recording out. So if you couldn't make it, just know you will get an email, and I am potentially going to put it out in our e-news. Hopefully to share with your swimmers and your families. So if that is something that interests them, we can point them towards all of these great resources here at Division 2, 3, and the NAIA. For the next ASCA Live, don't forget to sign up for it. We have one on August 13th on building your winning season planning in Excel, and that is with Coach Mo Abdelal from the Aqua Hogs. And then after that, we have head coaching with Dave Gibson from down in Swim Fort Lauderdale. As always, you will get your credit for being on this Ask a Live, hopefully within the next hour. But if you don't for some reason, shoot me an email to education@swimmingcoach.org. Again, thanks to everybody for hopping on today. We really appreciate it and hope to see you at the next Ask a Lives. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday and thanks again.
Thank you.